Hello, good beings. Welcome back to Midnight Requiem. William J. Bowerman was an American track and field coach and co-founder of Nike Incorporated. Over his career, he trained 31 Olympic athletes, 51 All-Americans, 12 American record holders, 22 NCAA champions, and 16 sub-4-minute milers. Bowerman disliked being called a coach, and during his 24 years at the University of Oregon, the Ducks track and field team had a winning season every year but one, attained 4 NCAA titles, and finished in the top 10 in the nation 16 times. As co-founder of Nike, he invented some of their top brands, including the Cortez and Waffle Racer, and assisted in the company moving from being a distributor of the other shoe brands to one creating their own shoes in-house. Born in Portland, Oregon, Bowerman's father, Jay, was a former governor. His mother, Elizabeth Hoover Bowerman, had grown up in Fossil. The family returned to Fossil after the parents divorced in 1913. Bowerman had an older brother and sister, Dan and Mary Elizabeth Beth, and a twin brother, Thomas, who died in an elevator accident when he was 2 years old. Bowerman attended Medford and Seattle schools before returning to Medford for high school. He played in the high school band and for the state champion football team in his junior and senior years. Bowerman first met Barbara Young, the woman he married, while a high school student in Medford. In 1929, Bowerman attended the University of Oregon to play football and study journalism at the suggestion of a longtime track coach, Bill Hayward. He also joined the track team. He was a member of Beta Theta Pi fraternity. After graduating, he taught biology and coached football at Franklin High School in Portland in 1934. In 1935, Bowerman moved back to Medford to teach and coach football, during which won a state title in 1940. Bowerman married Barbara Young on June 22, 1936. Their first son, John, was born June 22, 1938. William J. Bowerman Jr., J., was born November 17, 1942. Their third son, Tom, was born May 20, 1946. Bowerman had been in the ROTC and Army Reserve and then joined the United States Army as a second lieutenant in the days following the Pearl Harbor attack. He was assigned to Fort Lawton in Washington and served a year there before being assigned to the 86th Mountain Infantry Regiment at Camp Hale in Leadville, Colorado. He was the 87th Mountain Infantry Regiment. The regiment became a part of the 10th Mountain Division. Bowerman's duty entailed organizing the troops, supplies, and maintaining the mules used to carry the supplies in the mountains. On December 23, 1944, the division arrived in Naples, Italy, and soon moved north to the mountains of northern Italy. During his overseas service, Bowerman was promoted to commander of the 86th Regiment, 1st Battalion, at the rank of major. Bowerman negotiated a stand-down of German forces near the Brenner Pass in the days before the surrender of the German army in all of Italy. For his service, Bowerman received the Silver Star and 4 Bronze Stars. He was honorably discharged in October 1945. After the war, Bowerman returned to his position at Medford High School. The family then moved to Eugene, where he became the head track coach at his alma mater, the University of Oregon, on July 1st, 1948. Bowerman's Men of Oregon won 24 NCAA individual titles with wins in 15 of the 19 events contested and 4 NCAA team crowns, 1962, 1964, 1965, and 1970, and posted 16 top 10 NCAA finishes in 24 years as head coach. His team also boasted 33 Olympians, 38 conference champions, and 64 All-Americans. Bowerman disliked being called a coach. He saw himself as more of a teacher. He expected his squad to excel in the classroom and urged his charges to apply the lesson they learned on the tracks to everyday life. In 1972, Bowerman stepped back from day-to-day coaching activities to conduct fundraising for renovating the Hayward Field grandstands that would be necessary for the consideration of hosting the U.S. Olympic trials again in 1976. He also ran unsuccessfully for an House seat in the Oregon legislature in 1970 as a Republican, losing by only 815 votes out of 61,000 cast. Bowerman officially retired as a head coach on March 23, 1973, and assistant coach Bill Dillinger was immediately promoted. Bowerman created a training program for adjusting athletes for the high altitude that they would experience at the 1968 Mexico City Olympic Games. This successful program led to his selection at the 1972 Munich Olympic track and field head coaching position, even though American miler favorite Jim Ryan lost to Kenyan Kip Keino, citing altitude as part of the reason for this upset. Bowerman coached members of teams from Norway, Canada, Australia, and the United States. During the trip to New Zealand in 1962, Bowerman was introduced to the concept of running as a fitness routine, including people of an advanced age, through a running club organized by his friend and coaching colleague Arthur Ladrid. Bowerman brought this concept back to the United States and began to write articles and books about running. He also created a running program in Eugene that became a national model for fitness programs. A jogger's manual, a 3-page guide, was published shortly after Bowerman returned from New Zealand. In 1966, along with cardiologist W.E. Harris, Bowerman published a 90-page book titled Jogging. The book sold over 1 million copies and was credited with igniting the jogging phenomenon in the United States. The new crop of older athletic people contributed to the evolution of the sport of track and field to create a new division for these masters athletes. Due to the popularity of jogging, Harris and Bowerman published a 127-page book in 1967. Athletics West, an American running team formed by Bill Bowerman, Phil Knight, and Jeff Hollister in 1977. At the time, America had no definitive running program for young athletes to continue competing outside of college. The formation and success of Athletics West, together with the success of popularity of American runners like Craig Virgin, Frank Shorter, and Bill Rogers, helped inspire the 1970s running boom. According to Otis Davis, a student athlete who Bowerman coached at the University of Oregon, who later went on to win 2 gold medals at the 1960 Summer Olympics, he was one of the guinea pigs for whom Bowerman customized shoes prior to being a co-founder of Nike. Davis states, "I didn't like the way they felt on my feet. There was no support and they were too tight, but I saw Bowerman make them from the waffle iron and they were mine." In 1964, Bowerman entered into a handshake agreement with Phil Knight, who had been miler under him in the 1950s, to start an athletic footwear distribution company called Blue Ribbon Sports, later known as Nike. Knight managed the business end of the partnership while Bowerman experimented with improvements in athletic footwear design. Bowerman stayed in Eugene, keeping his coaching job at the University of Oregon, while Knight operated the main office from Portland. Bowerman and Knight initially began importing the Onitsuka Tiger running shoes from Japan to sell in the United States. Initially, the partnership was 50-50, but shortly afterwards, Bowerman wanted it to change to 51-49, with Knight having the higher ownership. He did this to avoid potential gridlock and have one of them in charge of final decisions. Bowerman's design ideas led to the creation of a running shoe in 1966, and that was ultimately named Nike Cortez in 1968, which quickly became a top seller and remains one of Nike's most iconic footwear designs. Bowerman designed several Nike shoes, but is best known for ruining his wife's Belgian waffle iron in 1970 or 1971, experimenting with the idea of using waffle iron rubber to create a new sole for footwear that would grip but be lightweight. Bowerman's design inspiration led to the introduction of the so-called moon shoe in 1972, so named because the waffle tread was said to resemble the footprints left by astronauts on the moon. Further refinement resulted in the waffle trainer in 1974, which helped fuel the explosive growth of Blue Ribbon Sports / Nike. While Bowerman was experimenting with a shoe design, he worked in a small, unventilated space using glue and surveillance with toxic components that caused him severe nerve damage. The nerve damage to his lower legs left him with significant mobility problems, as Kenny Moore notes in his book, Bowerman and the Men of Oregon. Bowerman had rendered himself unable to run in the shoes that he had given the world. Bowerman was obsessed with shaving weight off his athletes' running shoes. He believed that custom-made shoes would weigh less on the feet of his runners and cut down on blisters, as well as reduce the overall drag on their energy for every ounce he could remove from the shoe. By his estimation, removing 1 ounce from a shoe based on the 6-foot gait for a runner would translate in a reduction of 55 pounds of lift over a 1-mile span. Knight once said of Bowerman's importance to the company, if Coach Bowerman isn't happy, Nike isn't happy. Bowerman reduced his role with the company in the late 1970s and began passing down his stake in the company to other employees shortly before the IPO launched. In declining health in late 1999, Bowerman passed away at age 88 at his home and an assisted care facility in Fossil, Oregon. As always, my good being, be loving, caring to each other. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe, and leave comments. Have a wonderful day.